It is Friday, December 5th. Let's talk PlayStation. Welcome back, everyone, to another Metroid episode of LTPS. As always, let's begin with our PS Plus reminder. The December PS Plus Essential lineup is now live on PSN. Make sure you claim those games. Also, we have 2 more titles that were added to the Last Chance to Play section on PlayStation 5, so now there's 12 games total, I think. You've got Toho Genzo Rondo, Bullet Ballet, and River City Melee Mach, so about 2-ish weeks left to play those 2 games in particular, alongside all of the other games that will expire on the PlayStation Plus Extra catalog. But anyway, moving on to our first news story, we have a new PS5 system software update. For some reason, Sony wanted to announce that this is going out in a regional rolling basis, so not everyone might have access to this just yet, but doesn't really matter necessarily because there's only 2 items on the changelog, and it is improving the messages and usability on some screens. It's never all of them, and improving the system software performance and stability. So if you are deeply concerned with how stable your PlayStation 5 experience is, then make sure you check in system settings to make sure you're updated on the new 12.40 firmware. Now, in other firmware-related news, we have some somewhat encouraging things going on for that new PS5 Slim model, where it's CFI 21-1X series of consoles. That last number depends on the region the console is released in, but it's the updated one with the matte black trim down the center. Initially, the digital edition console with the reduced internal storage. Well, the disc version of that console, which these machines have been rolling out for a few weeks now, there's finally been some testing done, and we found out that from the factory, these consoles have the disk drive paired to the machine. So you can take it out of the box, set it up, and without ever connecting online, insert a disk, and it should install and play offline, assuming there's a full gold master on the disk, but it should be able to do that, which is great news. However, there's a very big caveat. So, well, 1, you can do a full factory reset, and I guess the drive is still paired, but 2, if you update the firmware, then it loses it. And these consoles are shipping with 11.40 or something like that, so that's a few months back. So realistically, a lot of people are still going to be updating their PS5s, and so that kind of ruins the entire point of having the disk drive paired initially. And as far as I understand it, firmwares in the here and now do not break disk drive pairing. It's always been you pair it once with an online handshake, and then everything thereafter, for the most part, keeps that drive paired to the console. So it's always been a sort of long-term accessibility thing, concern with these machines, is that there may or may not be a server 20, 30, 50 years down the road where these consoles can still have their disk drives paired and be playable offline. So it's a really weird thing because with this issue, it's similar to the CMOS thing, the battery issue with PS3, PS4, and PS5. Sony will never acknowledge those things, but they may quietly fix them. And that's kind of what they did here, but the firmware thing is a major crux and it doesn't really address the problem head on. So it's still an issue. So it's one of those things where hopefully some further testing will show that this will not be a problem, but for the time being, it still is. Moving on to more hardware news and a big follow-up from our story last week about the shortage for RAM globally. That might not be getting any better because now we have a major manufacturer exiting the consumer business, and that is Micron Technology. So recently, Micron sent out a press release confirming that by the end of February 2026, they are going to be exiting the consumer business of making SSDs and RAM in order to focus on big clients that want the components for AI data centers. And that is right off the back of OpenAI signing that deal with Samsung and SK Hynix, where that's going to eat up 40% of the global supply of memory for possibly upwards of a year plus, and that is a concern for other big manufacturers. Now, we're seeing, like, in the short term, immediately for the consumer PC business, so the retail side for regular everyday customers, there's been ballooning prices going on for those components. And so that obviously sucks, but there is still another aspect of this entire thing, which is enterprise is going to be heavily constrained for even just regular consumer electronics. Now, Sony, we initially heard from Tom over on their channel Moore's Law is Dead that they were a little bit savvy here and picked up some components ahead of time to where they can supply that for PlayStation 5 for, we think, the foreseeable future. Who knows? I mean, that could run out, assuming that rumor is even true. Sony did have some wiggle room retail-wise with PS5 this holiday season. but you never know, right? I mean, we know they did stockpile consoles in the West with the whole tariff situation, but there's still an issue to be had here in that, well, we expect they're going to be manufacturing PlayStation 6 fairly soon, and that is a console that contracts are either being signed right now or they have been signed. So Sony might be in a position where they have got this stuff locked in for a little bit going into late 2027 when we expect PlayStation 6 to launch. But, based on when contracts are signed, I mean, this could have huge implications on the PS6 price tag. And there's still so many other global economic uncertainties by the time we get to late 2027. So it is just really tough to say what this console will cost by the time we get to late 2027. It is deeply concerning, especially considering PS5 Pro, which we always say, like, that machine very likely just has a healthy profit margin where they're not willing to subsidize versus base PS5 consoles. So there's a point to be made that they'll phase out PS5 Pro before PS6, at least for the optics of pricing. But it's still kind of a tough thing to say that PS6 will likely still be in that $700 neighborhood if things keep going the way that they're going. Anyway, moving on to more hardware news. We have a new limited edition DualSense announced, this time for Genshin Impact. It's getting its own DualSense, which is going to be available for pre-order on December 11th on PlayStation Direct and participating retailers, priced at $84.99 USD and also Euro, or £74.99 sterling. It comes out January 21st, 2026 in select markets across Asia and Japan, and then February 25th in North, Central, South America, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. Now, this game is wildly popular, so I would imagine this controller will definitely be in demand. I don't care for the way it looks, but, I mean, who am I to say? It's something where I can't really appreciate the designs on it, so I don't know if it's really nice or not if you're a Genshin Impact player. But it does seem like Sony's doing a lot more custom, well, not custom, but, limited edition DualSense controllers. So at least there's finally what feels like much more variety for these controllers, because it seemed very slow the first 3 or 4 years, but now they're really starting to ramp it up. Next up, we've got something that was probably inevitable, and so this week it seems like it finally happened, which was a Gen AI art accusation being thrown at PlayStation for something they did. Which what they did this week was launch a new Advent Calendar promotion website where it's available in Canada, Germany, France, and the Netherlands. And so it's something where you can log in daily, you earn tickets by watching videos, and you can redeem those for unlocking PSN avatars. You're also entering into a raffle to earn games, hardware, and a PS Plus membership. It's a pretty standard affair promotion. But it's the head-on photo ID pixel art avatars, which are very likely AI generated. One of them is kind of a dead giveaway where the background of the cyberpunk look to it has this text on it, which is complete gibberish. So in all likelihood, that's what we're dealing with. And that's the thing about AI, is that it's been accelerating so fast to where oftentimes it can fool a lot of people and be indistinguishable, because this is a well-known art style, right? Like, these AI systems are trained on something, and that's how they're oftentimes spitting out very good images, but there's always still some tells, and so it would appear as though that's what's going on here. And I mean, look, it's not in a game, but I think it should go without saying that this is kind of an embarrassing way to be caught using it when maybe it's just a small, harmless promotion, but we're talking about PSN avatars and like art, like key art. PlayStation's been around for 30-something years now at this point, right? Recently 31, if we count the Japanese launch. And there's just so much history as far as art assets we could use. There's so many cool PlayStation characters, or different ways the characters are positioned, or, I mean, it's so obvious what could have been put in place here, but instead it was this, and it's just, in my view, flat out embarrassing. It sucks to see this happen. It really does. And there's been so much happening at a very fast pace in the games business as far as what's being disclosed and not. So there's already a number of third parties that are talking very openly about it and disclosing the use in some ways and not so much in others. You've got Tim Sweeney making comments about the disclosure of the Steam page. There's a lot going on. It's like so insurmountable as far as the stories that we could be covering here. But with PlayStation, we had this one. There was also the internal hackathon, which we saw that Aloy and Horizon Forbidden West demo that came out, which they put out a statement saying that was not representative of anything actually going on. It was an internal hackathon. But as far as art being generated and then proposed to the customer, that's what's going on with this. And I hate to see it. I think it's gross and, again, embarrassing for what could have been put in place. But I would have to safely assume this is not the last time we will see something like this. Let's move on to some PlayStation Studios news, and this probably is going to be PS Studios news based on the press release from Asahi, which is a new partnership with Bad Robot Games, making a new 4-player co-op experience for PlayStation 5 and PC. So this is indeed going to be a new 4-player co-op game from the game director Mike Booth, where he was the creator and lead designer on Left 4 Dead. For some background, Bad Robot is a film and television company founded by J.J. Abrams, but Bad Robot Games is a subsidiary, and that's been around for a few years. They actually did Silent Hill Ascension, if you can remember that, but this will be them returning to a larger production. And so the CEO of Bad Robot, Anna Sweet, said this in the press release, quote, "With the support of PlayStation, we hope to deliver a bold, innovative experience that is truly special for players. I could not be more excited that Mike Booth is at the creative helm, crafting a cooperative adventure that will lead to unforgettable moments with friends." So again, the game is in development for PS5 and PC, and more details are coming at a later date. So this was definitely surprising to see, although it is directly out of PlayStation's playbook, which is, in recent years more so, they have been very aggressive in funding new experiences, new studios, and they really put a lot of value in the talent at the studio. So it's not necessarily about, oh, it's a new team and it's they're unproven or whatever. Like, we see them do this, which sometimes they have a miss with the deviation games. Other times we're still waiting on if that fruit will bear anything, or if that tree will bear any fruit, like a Haven Studios, which now Jade Raymond's gone, and that game we're hearing is very problematic, but it's still something where PlayStation has always valued the talent, and it's not necessarily about established IP or locking down games in that manner, even though they of course do that. But this is definitely fascinating. I would love to see this go somewhere. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. I think for a lot of people, that was the hope with Back 4 Blood, which that game wasn't bad when it came out, right? I mean, that was the pitch of Turtle Rock coming back from being closed when they were originally Valve South, and then putting out what was a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead. And so, that game didn't really light the world on fire, but it was still fine. It's a very different environment nowadays. So I think if you played Left 4 Dead back in 2008, and it was a really fun experience, like somebody waking up the witch, and that was like a whole crazy thing, but it's like, that was so long ago. There's much more, there's a lot of saturation going on. There's so many different experiences, a lot of PvE experiences out there, so it's a lot harder nowadays, even when you're a bigger name like a Mike Booth. So we'll see if they can capture the same magic as Left 4 Dead. I would love to see that. I would love to see that happen for sure. But it's definitely something where I saw this and I thought, yeah, that seems like something PlayStation would want to get on board with. They just had an incredibly successful PvE 4-player co-op game with Helldivers 2. And this is also a great way to invest, which is new studios, good talent, doesn't impede on the existing teams, which they've had some troubles there, obviously, but it's still something they've been doing, is scouting out other outside studios as well for a PS Studios sort of second-party agreement, which would be a first-party game in this case, PS5 and PC. And also, too, it seems like they might start playtesting for the game, because 3 months ago, Mike Booth was on the Left 4 Dead subreddit and said, hey, here's our new studio or whatever. I mean, it's not super well known. They've been around for a few years, but you can sign up for playtests on their site right now. So you might want to go ahead and do that if they can actually have something playable fairly soon. I would think that they just needed some sort of publishing partner, and PlayStation was willing to step in and foot the bill. So maybe we'll see this game sooner than we think. For our next news story, this one is technically not PlayStation Studios news, but that is the news, is that this thing going on with Geoff Keighly and the Game Awards and this giant statue they put out in the Mojave Desert. You might have heard about this. So they initially teased this, but people went out to the Mojave Desert and found this giant art installation statue where it's showing off some serpents and demons. It's a crazy thing. Of course, they're teasing something for the TGAs, which is next week. And so people have been theorizing like crazy what this thing is. Is it related to Diablo 4's expansion? Is it God of War? Is it The Elder Scrolls 6? Is it Half-Life? Well, at the time of recording, what we can do is rule out Diablo 4 and Elder Scrolls because Bloomberg's Jason Schreier confirmed this on Reset Era, and also it's not God of War. So Cory Barlog confirmed this in during a Luke Stevens live stream, so he popped in there to say it's not God of War. So that's the news, is that it's not God of War. So not directly PS Studios news. However, it still could be, technically. I don't know about you, and this might be just total copium. I don't know what it could be, but my initial thought was that looks like something from Saros. So I would love to think that Saros is getting this kind of commitment from Sony, because Sony would clearly be involved in plopping this thing in the Mojave Desert and doing that with Geoff Keighly. But PlayStation does a lot of location-based advertisements like that. They just did it with the Happens on PS5 ad campaign. So I would hope that for a game that is a AAA roguelite bullet hell action game with, Returnal was like that, right? And that was Housemarque's biggest game up to that point. And it didn't sell gangbusters, but it was still widely regarded for being as good as it is. So I would love to think that they're willing to put that much marketing spend into the follow-up, which is Saros. We will see, but that is what my gut thought was. Naturally, it could be pretty much anything, so people are still guessing left and right. Now, in other direct PS Studios news, we have the Gran Turismo 7 Spec 3 update. That's available right now. That's free. Then there's also the Power Pack. That is available for $30 USD, so it's actually quite a meaty expansion, much more than I think we initially thought it would be, because when you buy that, you get 5 million credits immediately, so it's already kind of a decent value when $20 for the microtransaction gets you 2 million credits. So right off the bat, $10 more gets you the 5 million credits, but the Power Pack also has a new section on the map where it opens up 50 unique races and events across 20 different categories, and also the GT Sophie AI is being updated to version 3, which I've heard racing that is very compelling and a lot of fun. So definitely quite a big expansion for Gran Turismo 7 on top of what has been a very regular cadence of free updates and free, well, they're not free cars, but more cars added to the game and things like that, more cafe menus. So I do like that they've updated this game as much as they have, but at the very minimum, for those that maybe have been out of GT for a little bit, this might be a good time to jump back in. Next up, this one is more PC news, I know, but it's still really cool to see, which is the PC version of Helldivers 2 is getting a massive file size reduction thanks to PlayStation Support Studio Nexus Software. So the game on PC is 120-something gigs. It's incredibly large. Or no, actually, it's like 150 or something like that. So with this new beta trial they're doing, the new version, so it's not available for everyone just yet. They want to work out the kinks on this sort of diet-sized Helldivers 2. But when this does launch for everyone, it's going to be just 23 gigs thanks to optimizations from Nexus Software. For comparison's sake, the PS5 version is about 35 gigs. So the PS5 version has always been very lean in that regard, but it's cool that Nexus Software can step in for this particular version and do something like that. So it's a huge quality of life boost, and one that, at least on the PS5 console side of things, that has always been quite nice. I mean, there is a lot of games that have just ridiculous file sizes. But a lot of the PS Studio ones have been fairly modest as far as at least what you're getting, right? Not having to duplicate so much data, which was the big issue on PlayStation 4. So it's neat that these optimizations can be had on PlayStation 5, and now Nexus can help for the PC PS Studio games as well. Moving on to more not super exciting non-console news, but just to briefly mention for the PlayStation business, San Diego Studio is indeed doing a mobile version of MLB The Show. So this launched recently only in the Philippines, so they're still rolling this out, but it is being developed in-house at San Diego Studio, and it's available for iOS and Android. And for what is MLB, it's the premier MLB game. I mean, it's something that they probably will be highly successful with. I mean, out of all the mobile experiences that they have tried and dabbled with, we always say they just do terrible in this sector, and they've tried for over 10, 20 something years. They've always definitely attempted mobile experiences. This one, I mean, is kind of a, I don't want to say a surefire thing, but it's a very safe bet, assuming they don't mess it up. So I would think MLB The Show is going to be highly successful on the mobile platform. Moving on to an update from the Marathon stolen art assets controversy from a few months ago. If you remember, that was a big deal, and so this has finally been resolved with the independent artist Anti-Real over on their personal X profile, where they did say, and it would appear as though this was written by lawyers, but they did confirm that the Marathon art issue has been resolved with Bungie and SIE to their satisfaction. Now, I would safely presume and certainly hope that that is an NDA they signed, which included massive compensation, ideally 6 figures. So I mean, I would say congrats, and I will say congrats. Good for them. I think if they're willing to put that statement out there, that implies that they were told to because they signed something, and that included financial compensation. So it's good that Sony and Bungie were able to make it right. That works out for them. I hope they got a huge bag, so congrats to them. Next up, we have more not PlayStation Studios news, because this I did not think we would see, but it would appear as though the canceled London Studios game is back from the dead under new ownership and a new studio. So recently, yesterday actually, we had Twisted Works, which is a new studio. They were formed last year by 8 former London Studio staff members, and yesterday they announced their new game, Castouts, which is a modern fantasy co-op action game set in London, coming to PS5, Xbox Series S, X, and PC, and they're planning to do an early access beta in early 2027. Now, I'm going to throw up the original concept art for the London Studios fantasy live service game. That's the only thing we've ever had for this game. Well, that and I think one other screenshot or something. But we've had that, and now you can look at the key art for Castouts, and now also see gameplay of Castouts. And if we safely expect this is the same game, probably SIE was fine with those members keeping all those assets with their portfolio. It belongs to them. If we assume that's what's going on there, and they were able to turn around a gameplay trailer this quickly for a studio that was formed last year, if we assume all of those things, that means we are looking at the game that Sony walked away from and closed London Studio down over. And look, I mean, it's something where I can see where they're coming from. They are pitching it as a PvE experience, so it's a 4-player co-op game. You're facing like hordes of fantasy enemies in London. And I try not to be overly rude about these kind of things, but the game does look, I don't know, maybe not nearly as compelling as we otherwise would hope for a game to look like. Now, I don't necessarily want to cheer on a cancellation, but I think it's hard to watch this gameplay and not think like that was likely the right call. It sucks that there wasn't another option of, we want to cancel this and not close you guys down, and we just want you to pitch something else. Because again, that's the autonomy. Almost, well, I don't want to say almost always, but usually speaking, you can have a situation where they can build their own vertical slice, brainstorm, come up with ideas, and they pitch that to Sony. They then deny or approve from that point on. So the thing is, they chose to shut down the entire studio, and these staff members felt strongly about what they were building, because now they want to open up a whole new team and still bring this thing to market, which good luck to them. I don't really see it here. I think with today's environment and what else is out there, this is probably going to have a very tough time finding an audience, unless there's just a really compelling gameplay loop. And sometimes that is all you need to have that word of mouth really build. But so many other studios are trying to do that, and a lot of them are failing. So best of luck to the studio, Twisted Works and Castout. But I can kind of see where SIE was coming from on this one, and that's how it played out. Next up, we just got a very long, thorough gameplay trailer, about 9 minutes long, for the China Hero Project game, The Godslayer, which, if you remember, this game was announced about 2 years ago for the China Hero Project program, and so now it's doing more of a proper re-reveal trailer, showing off a lot of gameplay, a lot of uncut sequences, which I love when we see this much of a game, this... Well, I guess not early, but you know what I mean. So if they do a tease initially the second time you see it, you see a lot of it, and that is what they're doing. So it's a third-person action-adventure game. It has some traversal elements like an Assassin's Creed would, but it also looks pretty snappy with the combat, so kind of similar to Spider-Man maybe in a way. There's also these environmental hazards that can be manipulated. It looks really good. But the thing is, this re-reveal confirmed the game is coming to PS5, PC, and also Xbox Series S and X. Now, typically, if you're in Sony's program, then timed exclusivity is expected. So is the game still in the program? The answer is yes. The developer Panthea Games reached out to Push Square, and they confirmed that Sony is still assisting with game development support, marketing, and also publishing. So that would definitely be new for the hero programs that Sony has been doing, because it's pretty much expected that when you're signing up to their program, you are going to be offering timed exclusivity in agreement for their support. They'll still do PS5, 4, and PC all day, every day, but this would be the first one where they're allowed to at least confirm they're coming to Xbox, because I don't think it's entirely clear if the game is shipping PS5, PC first, but they're allowed to say Xbox, or if it's going to be day and date on Xbox. But I guess we'll see. Maybe Sony is getting a little bit more lax on what they are allowing in the program and where the games can go as far as when they're allowed to announce these things or what have you, because they're never locked down in perpetuity. Sony never owns the games, even if they do publishing typically. But, it is something where maybe based on milestone builds, Sony saw the potential in this game and not wanting to lose it because they didn't lock it down early enough. That was part of the bargaining chips. Who knows? I mean, every deal is structured very differently, but it was certainly worth pointing out that for what does look quite good, this is a game still in their program, and it will ship on all platforms, or at least Xbox, not so much Nintendo just yet. Let's move on to some third-party news stories, beginning with this one about Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, a game that many still say is locked to PlayStation 3, which is certainly true. We're still waiting for an MGS Collection Volume 2, which may or may not have this game. You would think it does. But anyway, the news here is that the MGS series producer would like to see this game remade. So speaking with Real Sound, the MGS series producer, Noriaki Akamura, was asked about what's next for the IP after the MGS3 remake. They said they're still thinking about that, but as for the possibility of MGS4 and that getting a remake, Akamura said, quote, "The hardware back then required very specific designs to get the most out of the 3D technology that was available at the time, so MGS4 ended up with some pretty unique code. It seems like it would be quite a challenge to bring that into the present day." So that's the thing about MGS4. The game is on PlayStation 3. It's the story we always say about that console and how games were made on it. It does present a unique challenge compared to 360 versions, and that it's just a little bit more annoying and complicated to bring that to modern platforms. And that, if anything, might be the holdup for why the game is not principally coming back. I say principally like the way it was, right? It's not a remake if it's going into the MGS collection. It would probably get a frame rate bump in resolution. But, that might be why the game is so hung up there, because in this context, Akamura is talking about a remake. But MGS4 would also, I think, be a fantastic remake to do if they were willing to take on that challenge. It's just oftentimes remakes are really helpful if you have original source code, and the game sounds like it was designed in, well, a very PS3 way, which is leaning into the SPEs, the multi-threaded asymmetric architecture. And, well, even to this day, that's how PS3 is still biting Sony in the butt. So even for third-party games as well, if they were exclusive to the platform at the time. Moving on to Eidos Montreal, where we recently learned about another round of layoffs, which is unfortunate. It's still a very brutal games business, but we also found out that there was indeed a Legacy of Kain reboot in development at the studio. Now, that was actually unrelated to the recent layoffs. It was canceled years ago and was only in development for about a year or so before it was canceled, and that actually happened after the Embracer acquisition. But there was the discovery on employee resumes that they were working on a dark fantasy ARPG, and Insider Gaming is now confirming that that was the Legacy of Kain reboot, which I do know for a lot of die-hard Legacy of Kain fans, that is going to sting to see, and I completely sympathize with you. I don't love the franchise, or that IP rather, but it's something where I know like it's got a cult following, and people have been asking for it for a long time, and so it really stings to know that like they were making some progress on it. Apparently they had some things that were very playable, and it was shut down. So, oftentimes that stuff will happen and we never hear about it because it was canceled after 6 months to a year. Maybe we hear about it years later, but sometimes you have these stories break out and you wonder like, what were we so close to getting, or at least what was something that was starting to happen, but maybe didn't really get that far beyond a year of dev time, So it sucks, that and the layoffs as well. But I thought it was at least worth pointing out for those cult fans that follow Legacy of Kain, because this one does have to hurt. Moving on to some things for the Game Awards, the TGAs 2025 happening very soon next week on the 11th. That's a Thursday. And so timing-wise, that'll work out to where we'll have LTPS cover some big announcements from the TGAs, and also probably on Friday later in the day whenever I can get either one of them up, but also reactions from it as well. So we'll do that. But anyway, for the TGAs, if you want to skip this news story, we're going to go over all the like bigger rumors or things that we're learning about the TGAs. So this is basically a spoiler if you want to, go into the show very blind. So just check timestamps. Otherwise, here is a very quick rundown on what we're hearing for TGA 2025. So Moss Gamers claims that Silent Hill 1, the remake, will be revealed. That's according to a well-informed Japanese source. The Prince of Persia Twitter account confirmed that the Sands of Time remake will not be at the event, but we did learn in a separate report from Insider Gaming that the title is expected to launch on January 16th. The developer behind The Ascent, Neon Giant, has confirmed their next game reveal is going to happen at the Game Awards. There was a recent trademark filing that we missed last week, and that was from Remedy, and it was spotted for Control Resonant. Now, we're unsure if that's the sequel or the TV adaptation that they're doing with Annapurna, but we might see something going on with Control. And then Suda51's Romeo is Dead had a release date appear on the PS Store, or the PS Mobile app rather. So it was set for February 11th, 2026. So that will probably get a trailer and a release date trailer as well. So those are some of the bigger things that happened recently. Of course, we did talk earlier about the big statue in the Mojave Desert, and that we can rule out a number of things. So there's still probably a lot that Geoff has locked down so far, but the guy's also probably sweating bullets as every hour passes by, because when we get closer and closer, typically things do start to leak even more so. And we're still like far away, right? As I'm filming this, it's a week away. So week of, we will probably start seeing a lot of the floodgates open up. So hopefully nothing too crazy gets out there, because I still think it is a lot more fun to watch these things anyway when you don't know what's coming up. But for those that were curious, as of right now, those are the big ones for the event. Moving on to some PlayStation Productions news, we have some things going on for the God of War Amazon TV series, where Deadline is reporting that the pre-production is already well underway in Vancouver, and Amazon has ordered 2 seasons already. And the Emmy Award-winning director Frederick Io Toye is directing the first 2 episodes as well. So that's great to see. I mean, it's certainly encouraging for what is a well-known property like God of War. They're probably firmly aware of like how important the property is, and so let's just hope they're doing right by it. I know with the director, they've got a lot of fame and notoriety. Also they've worked on The Boys as well, directed some just crazy episodes of television. So that is encouraging to see for sure. Now, Helldivers 2, or Helldivers the movie rather, the movie adaptation. So we're also hearing that is underway as well. Justin Lin from Fast and Furious is going to direct, and that's based on a script by Gary Doberman, who wrote the screenplays for It and Annabelle. So maybe some elements of horror that's going to be tied in there as well, because Helldivers naturally is like a Stormtroopers. It should have some humor to it, but maybe they will lean into more uneasy moments as well, because, well, you want those big bugs to get in the way, and sometimes maybe scary here and there. But, Helldivers is the kind of movie where, I don't want to say it's easier, I don't know a damn thing about making movies, but you would think maybe it's more approachable in that manner versus something that's a little bit more grounded with, like God of War, for example, where there's a lot of careful undertones of how that narrative is played out. Helldivers, you want to be a little bit more loose and fun with it, so let's hope that both these properties are accomplishing what they're trying to do in their new mediums. Now, with all that said, it is time for Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway where one of you can win a $10 PSN code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I'll be contacting you very soon via email or X. And if you would like to win a $10 PSN code, it is so simple. Follow the link down below or scan the QR code, enter the Gleam giveaway, and supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and I'll announce the winner next week because I'm trying to help pay for your games. Those are all the stories from this past week that I wanted to talk about with you all, and our Tuesday video was going over my entire PS1 physical games collection. And for those keeping score at home, that now means I've done that for every PlayStation platform. So PS1 through 5, PSP, and Vita. You now know most of what I own, even though the newer platforms, I've bought a lot of things since then, and a handful of other classic things as well. But some of you really enjoy when I blabber about the things I own. So now we've got PS1 done. And then coming up, probably another upload on Tuesday as well. 30 Platinums Part 4, just giving you a progress update. It's going. It's going slow though. Reason being is I recorded a lot more footage than I did previously, so parsing through everything is just taking substantially longer. I want this to be done by the end of the year. I'm trying. We will see what happens. So I wish I could say it's coming up soon, but unfortunately I can't say that just yet. But thank you for being patient. Part 4 is on the way, and I hope you all enjoy it. And then we had Click R3 last night, so you can check that out on the Spawncast channel. And that is pretty much it. So that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you all next Friday.